guys, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. And like some of my more recent reviews, I've just been going through my collection, picking out some random films that I've never talked about before. And this is one that I've seen once before, but didn't really remember much of anything about it except what it was about. And it's one that I very, very much enjoy. It's another low-budget film from the 70s, kind of forgotten, actually, and very, very underrated, especially considered the in the filmography of its lead and just how many awesome people are involved with it. I mean, you have two people that were knighted, the director and the lead actor. It's a psychological horror film, but I can see how it would toe the line between psychological horror and thriller. And it does involve a ventriloquist dummy. I don't know if I've said this to as many lengths as I have with clown horror films, but I do find doll movies kind of overrated as well. I think it's just a quick way to get people to go see it. I mean, they did that with the Poltergeist remake. They put the clown doll on it, and because dolls and clowns seem to be just surefire ways for people to think it's scary. But to me, this is the way to do like a ventriloquist dummy horror film, and it's 1978's Magic with Sir Anthony Hopkins, a very early role. I'm not sure when his debut was. I think it was in the early 70s. But this is one of his 5 collaborations with director Richard Attenborough. Yeah, John Hammond from Jurassic World. He also directed things like A Bridge Too Far and Gandhi. He's also knighted. And with a great cast like Burgess Meredith. I mean, Penguin from the Adam West Batman show. To me, he's the biggest actor from Twilight Zone. He was in four episodes. He narrated the Twilight Zone movie. Always a great treat to see Burgess Meredith. But also Anne Margaret, Ed Lauter, David Ogden Stiers. Music by Jerry Goldsmith. I mean, he won the Oscar for the score to The Omen. So you have a lot of talent behind this film. It's based on the book Magic by William Goldman, who wrote the screenplay. And so therefore, it's, from what I've heard, it's a very loyal and faithful adaptation. It really just leaves out certain things, like it leaves out a lot of backstory, which is good. This movie shows us exactly what we need to know about Corky. That's Anthony Hopkins' name. Corky's life and his backstory and how he came into possession of Fats, the dummy. So actually trimming that fat, I think actually worked to the film's benefit. Sir Hopkins actually did learn ventriloquism and learned the magic tricks with the cards for this film. And his voice of Fats kind of sounds a bit like Bugs Bunny, but I think it works for the character. I don't know if like ventriloquism and the persona of dummies has always kind of been like that sort of New Yorker, like almost kind of sound like a 40s gangster almost. But kind of sounds like Bugs Bunny. And, I mean, low budget. It was made for like, I think $2 million. Made, I think around $23 million. I could be wrong about that. Oh, made for 7. Made 23.8. And sadly, this is a movie that doesn't ever get talked about. I mean, pre-Silence of the Lambs, this is, from what I've seen, I would have to say Hopkins' best performance. Either this or Elephant Man. I think he gets to stretch his acting legs a little bit more in this film than, say, Elephant Man. I would say Elephant Man is a much better movie. That is one of my favorite films of all time. But I am a huge sucker for these psychological films where there's someone with some deeply disturbed issue, which we all know Anthony Hopkins can play, and there's something obsessive or compulsive. In this case, the line of reality gets blurred between his own personality and Fats. The only thing I can think of recently that's done something like that, kind of what I mean, would be an IFC film called Rent-A-Pal, which I've been meaning to review because I was very impressed by that film. But where this one is like an external projection of one's thoughts and even split personality, Rent-A-Pal is just more of like an obsession with like an external friend that doesn't exist. But I highly recommend Rent-A-Pal as well. And the story is just about this performing magician who can't really catch a break. He does card tricks on stage, but bombs, and then out of nowhere decides to spice it up with a ventriloquist dummy, and things start picking up for him. Burgess Meredith is his agent, which I guess Meredith modeled his performance off of a real life agent named Swifty Laser or Lazar or something like that. And Burgess Meredith is great. He even kind of reminds me of the Twilight Zone episode he did where he plays the devil. He's got these long ass cigars and just the way he speaks really reminded me of that. I guess in the book, Corky is still shy, but he's more of like a ladies' man. Whereas here, he is deathfully shy and timid, which I think Hopkins does great at. Now, originally, I know before Attenborough was attached, Spielberg was set to direct it. And well, actually, first was Norman Jewison, and he wanted Jack Nicholson, which could have been interesting, I think. I think maybe it would have gone the same route as The Shining, where there's no doubt that he's crazy from the beginning. But Nicholson didn't want to wear a hairpiece. Spielberg was interested, and he wanted Robert De Niro. He's still my favorite actor. I'm not sure what he could have brought to it. It definitely would have been interesting, sure. I mean, doing this 2 years after Taxi Driver, I mean, that would have been really interesting. But the biggest one is, and I'm not sure which director or if it was even Attenborough himself, originally thought for the role also was Gene Wilder. But Attenborough, it was either Attenborough or the writer Goldman thought that the presence of a comedian would kind of distract from the serious nature of the film. And that I do agree with that. And I've heard some people say that they felt that the stand-up bits in the jokes should have been funnier. When he's on stage with Fats, I hear the jokes, I get the jokes. Maybe it's Hopkins' delivery, maybe he's not saying it like a comedian. And that I've heard some people say that they don't buy that this guy's skyrocketing to fame. I thought so. It sounded like jokes, and I thought they were funny. But had this movie been made a few years later, or if who I'm thinking of was already fairly famous by this time, Robin Williams would have been amazing in this role. I mean, take like what he did with 1 Hour Photo and just make it a ventriloquist dummy, but let Robin Williams do his manic comedic stuff that we all love him for with Fats. Robin Williams would really be the only other actor that I could possibly see and really push to want to see other than Hopkins, because Hopkins did do an amazing job with this film. I think it's a very underrated performance of his. And I still miss Robin Williams dearly. I don't think anyone will get over that. But something like this, I think really would have been awesome to see Williams do. Anything else? I guess Hopkins and Anna Margaret were paid $300,000 for each of their roles, and it was filmed at the Blue Lake in Upper Lake, California, which it looks more like it takes place in New York, but when he gets to the resort, it kind of looks a bit more Pacific Northwest. But yeah, so Burgess Meredith tells him that he's going to get this big break. He's going to get a NBC pilot sitcom, but one of their terms is he has to get a medical exam, which he refuses. Meredith wants to go talk to him to talk it over, but he flees. He takes a cab to his childhood home, to the cemetery where his parents are buried. It doesn't go into much, which is good. We don't need to. All it shows when he goes by his childhood home, his dad playing catch with his brother, his mom doing something and ignoring him, and him just whittling something on the porch, just being ignored. That's all we need to see. I'm glad this movie didn't have all these flashbacks with what he was like as a kid. But then he goes to this one resort, or kind of like a bed and breakfast, but with cabins, where we see this woman named Peggy, played by Anne Margaret, who was his crush in high school. He's still in love with her. They kind of rekindle a relationship, but she's dating the guy she dated. She's married to the guy she dated in high school, who is an abusive alcoholic. And I don't remember if the film states it, but I guess in the book he is more of an abusive alcoholic, or the abuse is more evident in the book, and that he has affairs when he goes out for his job. She decides to leave Duke, husband's name, for Corky. But it's around this time that the line of reality seems to be blurring, and Fat seems to be taking over more and more. Up until the line is completely non-existent. And this is just an excellent character study. I mean, there really are some chilling scenes where Hopkins, you can really tell he's struggling emotionally and mentally. Like when Burgess Meredith finds him and sits down with him, and he hints that he knows that he's got some issues, and he says, pretty much telling him, forget about the pilot, just you need help. He tries to tell him that he doesn't need help. He was like, okay, I'll forget it if you can make Fat shut up for 5 minutes. And it's very uncomfortable. It's very awkward. There's no music during the scene, which really works. Just the way Hopkins portrays it, just a guy just sitting there, very antsy and trying to make small talk, but you can tell he's, painfully trying to get through this. There is one scene where they make it look like Fats is alive. And again, I'm glad they didn't. Child's Play is fun. Living Doll from Twilight Zone it's ambiguous, but that's what makes it interesting. There's another Twilight Zone episode with the ventriloquist dummy. There's a Tales from the Crypt episode with the ventriloquist dummy. Of course, Goosebumps with Slappy. But, I've always found the psychological aspect of this to be infinitely more interesting than just having a living dummy or a living doll just for the sake of, because that's a cool idea. There is a scene where it looks like Fats is alive, and yes, there are murders in the film. I'm just going to say spoilers here, because, yeah, it's kind of a forgotten movie for the 70s, but I highly, highly recommend this. So I'm going to say spoilers, but the whole cast does a great job. It is a great build-up. I mean, we see him start without Fats. All of a sudden he has him. And, you know, at first it just hints that he might have some mental issues and he's going to go on the run. But as the movie goes on, he finds himself unable to separate himself physically and mentally from Fats. Even to the point of Fats being jealous when he talks about being with Peggy or leaving to go have dinner with Peggy or talking about their life together even without him for just a period. And just the whole psychological aspect of just this split personality, and where Fats is everything that Corky is not. You know, he's foul-mouthed. He can be smooth when he wants to. He's the one that has all the dark thoughts, murder, revenge, covering up your crimes. But very, very good film, very underrated, so I'm going to get to spoilers. He does kill his agent, Burgess Meredith, which his name is Ben Green, but as a joke they call him Gay Green. And yeah, there are some things that do look kind of silly, like he kills him by smashing Fats, beating him to death with Fats, essentially. But then Fats tells him, strip him of his identifications, put rocks in his pockets, swim him out into the lake, and just drop him. And it is quite creepy how he put Fats in the window, just kind of like looking, and like when it shows Hopkins like swimming, carrying Meredith, and it just shows like his POV to the cabin that gets smaller and smaller away, seeing Fats in the window, like watching him, and just the fact that he thinks that Fats is alive and watching him, it's actually pretty creepy. Of course, Meredith comes alive. They have a fight. He's able to drown him. And apparently, it is common for ventriloquists to kind of lose themselves in their ventriloquism. Hopkins even said in an interview on Dick Cavett, which I did watch, that he once called cut in Fats's voice and didn't know it. Almost as if that part of his brain said it without him realizing it. So I guess it is kind of common for ventriloquists to just, that part of their mind to really just kind of go rogue and can kind of disturb them. But then Peggy's husband comes home. He suspects the affair and starts putting it together. He takes Hopkins out in the rowboat to go fishing so he can kind of talk to him and figure out what's going on. There is kind of a suspenseful scene where when he's pulling in his line, he's like, God, it's huge. And Hopkins is like panicking, trying to row the boat back, but he just pulls up like a log. But then they find Burgess Meredith's body washed up. The guy already thinks Corky is weird. So when he fails to give CPR, he goes to look in Corky's cabin. And, you know, he finds a wig of Fats's with blood on it. He finds Green's identifications. And then he goes to look at Fats's head because the dummy's head caved in. But just as he does that, Fats picks up a knife, like a dummy-sized knife, and stabs him with it. And we see his face, like, he kind of smirks, and his eyes look up and eyebrows go up. it's made to look like Fats is doing it himself, and some of it is kind of silly because like when the guy goes to fall, he falls back on it, or when he falls down, Fats' arm is up, it grazes his throat. Things that probably would not make that kind of injury, but it's done in a way and played seriously enough that I can take it seriously. But Fats is sitting in front of a curtain, so immediately when Duke goes down, Hopkins comes out and he's all sweaty and panicky with like a, "What have you done? What are we gonna do?" And I especially love like towards the end where they're both wearing matching sweaters, and because I think that's supposed to signify the complete loss of a barrier, that they're both completely or that Hopkins has lost complete control. Peg is even over the cabin at one point afterward, and Fats is talking, and talks about, yeah, I think he gives away a magic trick, and then talks about how, oh yeah, Schmucko here uses it every time he wants to bang some broad, and she gets pissed and leaves. And then there's like a line between them where Fats is like, "You know why I did that? Because I could. You know why you did stop me? Because you couldn't." Like, pretty much Fats is starting to take on his own personality in Hopkins' head. Plus, I love the pain, or the look on Hopkins' face, because when Fats is saying that, he's back too, like, talking. And when it shows Hopkins' face, you can tell it's like killing him to say it. Like, it's not him, he's doing it out of some dark compulsion that he can't control. Also, after that, like, Fats is talking to Hopkins about pains that he's having. Like, Hopkins is up against the mirror, like, screaming, and his face is red. And he's like, "Oh, Schmucko, you having a migraine, huh? It's the one that's spread down to the eyes. Oh, now it's working its way back up to the brain." And Hopkins has to act through the ventriloquism and, all the emotions, but it's pretty well known that Hopkins will read a script up till maybe 200 times till he knows it without even having to think about it. So maybe it was easier for him than, say, any other person, but you really buy that this guy is struggling mentally, and that he's fearful at one point, because he even says, "I'm going alone on the honeymoon with Peggy. You're just gonna stay in here for a bit." And he threatens to tell Peggy about the 2 murders. And the look on, like, he's so good at playing frightened, hurt, in pain, worried, fearful. His performance all around is just excellent. It's a shame. I don't know if he won any independent awards. Not to say it's Oscar worthy, but it's fairly close. And then it ends with, he goes up to Peggy's bedroom door, talking like Fats, but saying like, "Oh no, I left Schmucko down at the cabin. Come on, open the door for me. He whittled you a wooden heart. He just doesn't want you to hate him." And she tells her to leave it by the door. And by this point, I think Hopkins is even wearing one of Fats' wigs. And it looks like his eyebrows are painted or dyed, or something is done with them. So not only his clothes match, but the same, like, comb-over haircut. Like he's just like standing there with a knife in the shadows. He's got those wide Hannibal Lecter eyes. Just the guy's flawless at just being creepy. But also in this, kind of like a John Lithgow role, kind of sympathetic. Well, Lithgow can kind of be sympathetic when he's a crazy person. He's also very scary, but he's very sympathetic. He was supposed to kill Peggy so it could just be the two of them again. But he shows up back to the cabin and he's holding himself. And Fats is like, why does my stomach hurt? Why is the pain spreading? I mean, I don't have a stomach. And he shows that he's been stabbed. Anthony Hopkins saw, Corky saw how happy Peggy was with the heart. And that he made her happy. And he couldn't bring himself to stab her, so he stabbed himself. And they both kind of die in each other's arms. But it ends with Fats saying, I was you. Us was you. Everything between us was you the whole time. It was kind of like Hopkins coming to... I should just say Corky, because the character Corky, it's like at that moment of death realizes and comes to term with, yes, there's not two people, it was me the whole time. But also, and then he dies. And then that's when Peg shows up. There's this very long, higher up shot looking down at the cabin. Peggy runs up, like, come on out, let's give it another shot. Come on, don't play hard to get. Come on out. And she has the wooden heart. And then she mimics Fat's voice, like, how does she say? I can guarantee you're not gonna get it. I can guarantee you're not gonna get another chance. Throws it up in the air, freeze frame. I think some people have said that, like, Fats has become part of her or something. I think that's stupid. I think she was just kind of mocking his voice to make him laugh or something. I don't think there's really anything deep about it. But also great scenes of anger, like when Corky is showing her this one magic trick that his mentor showed him. It goes wrong the first time, and then just with anger and frustration, he yells at her to do her part of the trick so it goes right, and to think hard so he can read her mind to pick the right card. And you can tell that this guy's been a failure his whole life, because when the trick goes right, he like relents and is just keeps repeating, like, I didn't fail. I didn't fail. But I guess also just trying to do the trick without Fats. Because I guess at that point, he starts thinking he's nothing and can't do anything without Fats. And here he's trying to do the trick with her without Fats, so he has to kind of do it by himself. But that mixed with probably just a lifetime of failure, and just is something that's plagued him. And with Fats, he's had a success. And I haven't talked much about the score, but the score is used when it's need to. There are great scenes of total silence. Like when Duke is snooping around through the cabin, perfect silence builds suspense. Acting across the board is great. This is one of Hopkins' finest performances, I think. I mean, top three for me would be Silence of the Lambs, this, and Elephant Man. Lambs, by default, will probably always be my favorite. But this is up there. This is one that doesn't get talked about much, and it's kind of a shame. But Burgess Meredith, also great. I mean, just the... drives a Rolls Royce, the gold watch, I don't know if you would call it a leisure suit, but sharp clothes, cigars this long and just kind of always like the show business kid. Just Meredith is always a treat to see, but also Anne Margaret and Ed Lauder are also very good. Goldsmith's score, William Goldman's script. I mean, the script is really good, and Attenborough's direction. This is a very well made film. I mean, especially for the budget and the time it was made. I can't think of another one that had like this much talent behind it. Of course, back then, I mean, Attenborough had some success because he started out as an actor in like the 40s. I think Hopkins was really one of the only somewhat newcomers, but I mean, two people that were knighted. Anne Margaret would go on to have, I think, Golden Globe and Oscar nominations. Hopkins, Oscar winner, eventually, having this much Jerry Goldsmith, have this much talent in just a low budget 70s flick that no one talks about. It's really sad. I love the psychological aspect of it. Again, I will take I mean, there are certain killer clown movies that I do like, but dolls, puppets, dummies, I think are up there with clowns as things I think are just overrated as gimmicks. I don't think they're as scary or interesting. But to me, this is how you do it. And as fun as Child's Play is, or Child's Play 1 and 2 specifically, as fun as that is, to me, this is how you do like a doll or ventriloquist dummy movie. I loved just that it's all psychological within Corky's head, like this split personality or this projection. Awesome movie. Big fan of it. Highly underrated. I don't even remember liking it this much the first time I saw it. But, yeah, this second time around, excellent. I really enjoyed it. So that is Magic from 1978. Thank you for watching.